Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at EliTheComputerGuy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to EliTheComputerGuy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the Computer Guy, and in today's class, we're going to be talking about session variables in PHP so that the values of variables can follow your users when they're interacting with different pages with your PHP web application. So you obviously should know how to create variables in PHP at this point and set the values for those variables. But one of the problems that you're going to have is as people or as your users start using different pages within your PHP application, the question is how do the values for the variables follow them? Things such as usernames or account information, possibly settings that your users have set so that the user experience is better for them. When they go from one page to another, you're going to need those variable values to follow them, and that is what you can use session variables to do. So essentially what happens here is somebody opens up their web browser and they open up your website, and by opening up the website, their web browser is then going to communicate with your LAMP server, your Linux Apache MySQL PHP server. When they open up your website, that is going to then set up a session with the PHP component of that LAMP server. And what we are now going to do is we are going to set global variables, so basically variables that will then remain constant while that session is set up with your web server. So previously, again, using things like post and using things like get, we have set the values of variables for specific pages or for specific scripts. What we're now going to be doing is we're going to be doing something called setting global variables. So basically we're going to set the values for these variables, and these values are going to remain as long as the user is interacting with the website or until they decide to disconnect that session. So this way you can set the value for username, you can set the value for any number of settings for your users, and then those values will follow them until they either log out, basically kill the session, or the session times out on its own. So what I'm going to be showing you how to do today is I'm going to be showing you how to set the session variables, how to be able to call the session variables from different pages within your PHP web application, and then how to be able to kill the session and basically eliminate all those variable values that you've set. So the only warning for today is just please understand that the web application that I'm going to be showing you today is ass ugly. To be nice about it, it's ass ugly. I'm trying to show you how session variables work without making things overly complicated. So I'm not using any like if-else statements in order to print things out in the web application. And because of that, it's ugly. Just understand it's ugly. If you're sitting there going, wow, why is this so horribly ugly? It's because I did not try to overcomplicate this class by making the web application prettier like I would if I was actually trying to put something out in the production environment. What I'm going to be showing you today is horribly ugly just because I'm trying to get the core concept across of how to create and use these session variables. And so the end result is, as you see, what the end result is. So with that, let's go over to the demonstration computer. I will show you how the session variables kind of work in an interactive environment, and then we'll go over and take a look at the code. So here we are at my demonstration machine. Basically, I'm just simply using this for the web browser, and this is connecting back to my LAMP server, my Linux Apache MySQL PHP server. And so here, essentially, I've opened up, that's that IP address for that server, and I've gone to the home.php script that I've created. Here, essentially, what I've done is I've created a couple of different pages here. So I have a home page, I have an about page, I have another page, just to kind of show you once I actually set the session variable values, how that will work as somebody is moving through your site. And then finally up here, I have a little logout script, and basically what that logout script will do is that will clear all the session variables and then actually kill the session itself. So here, basically I have something, the equivalent of, let's say, a login script. So here it's asking for a name, and then this is asking for a font size. So again, think about this for if you want your users to be able to set the environmental variables for your web application. Think about font size, font colors, those nicety types of things. So what I can do is I can come here and I can say my name is Fred, and I can say I want the font size, I don't know, to be some obnoxious, let's say 50. I then hit submit. Basically what you're going to see here is when I hit submit, so basically all that is an HTML form that posted the value to something called the Login Script.php. So this is a login script. And so now you are logged in as Fred. So I've logged in as Fred and I set the font size to 50. So here I'm not really seeing anything because I'm not actually using those variable values yet. But if I go back to home, now what we can see is it says Fred is logged in and my font size is 50. If I go to about, I can see that Fred is logged in, and now this is entirely different text with the font size being 50, and I can go to another page. Again, Fred is still logged in, and this is another page where the font size is 50. And so this is the most important concept here, is I want you to understand that the values of these variables are moving along with the user as they interact with your web application. I can then go up here to log out. I have now been logged out. Basically what this has done is it's cleared the variable values and killed the session. I now go back to home, and home is what it looked like before. Home, about, another page, right? So I can go back to home again. If I want to log in as, let's say, Patty, I can log in as, and let's say I want a really obnoxious font size of something like 100. I can hit submit. You are now logged in as Patty. The font size is 100. I can go to home. And again, I am now logged in as Patty, and I have this obnoxious font size. If I go to About, Patty, obnoxious font size, and if I go to another page, Patty, obnoxious font size. So that is what I'm just trying to get you to understand here. Again, if you're going to create a production application in the production world, you'll make it prettier. You'd use if-else statements and other things, but I just want you to grasp this concept. Then past that, all I have to do is I just go here to log out. And again, when I log out, that then clears all of those session variable values and kills a session itself. So with that, let's go over and actually take a look at the code. So here's the code for the session application that I created. I did write this out in VS Code, but it is important to understand all you need is a basic ASCII text editor in order to be able to write out PHP or most of the scripting languages. So if you're in the Windows world, you can try this in Notepad. If you're in the Mac world, you can use TextEdit. In the Linux world, you can use gedit, Nano, Vim, whatever else. Though I will say VS Code makes it a little bit easier because you get all the fancy colors and that kind of thing. So for this particular project, we actually have 5 different files. The first is the home.php script. So this is what actually prints out that home page. Then we have the about page. Then we have the another page. And so these are the pages that we're actually going to be going to. Past that, we have a form, and this is the form that we are going to use in order to actually log in. So basically set that username and set that font preference. And that is going to point to the login script.php. And so this is that particular script. So this script is what sets the values for the session that we'll be dealing with later. Beyond that, again, the final link that we have up in that kind of menu bar points to the logout script. So that href is going to point to a logout script.php. Then we have this logout script here, and this logout script, basically all this is going to do is it's going to kill those session variable values and then kill the session itself. So past that, let's go and actually start taking a look at how this script works. So basically at the top for all of these pages, we simply have a basic menu here. So even though this is a PHP script, what I'm doing is I'm putting this menu up above the PHP tag. And so if you go to home, about, or another page, basically you've simply got that little menu bar up at that top. So we've simply got the menu bar. Then we're going to go down and we're going to create the form that is going to allow us to basically log in to this crappy little web application. So please log in. So form actions action equals login script.php. So when we hit the submit button, it's going to send the information to the login script.php. The method is going to equal post. Name, so what the person's name is, the type is going to be text, and the name for that is going to be username. Font size, Input type is going to be number, name is going to be font size, input type is going to be submit, and then we're going to close the form. So if we go over and we take a look, basically, this is the please log in, name, and then whatever the username is, font size, and then whatever the font size is. When you hit submit, that is then going to go to the login script.php. So we're going to go over, take a look at that. And so here, again, we have a little menu at the top, like we did before. We don't really care about that. Then we're going to open up the PHP. So this is the actual PHP script. And the most important thing, the one thing that you cannot forget, it's very easy to forget this, don't forget this, is you actually have to start the session for the page. So you use this function called session_start. And what this does is it starts the session for the page so that you can then read the session variable values or interact with the session. Literally, if you forget that, I don't know what it is, 15 characters right there, nothing is going to work, right? You have to call this as one of the first things that you do in your PHP script. Then all we're going to do down here is we're going to create session variable names and then set what the values are. So just like with get or just like with post, we've used those in the past and we're using post here, what we're going to do is $_session bracket, and then we're going to create a variable name for username. So we're going to create a variable session username, and we're going to set the value of that variable to be whatever came in from the post from the form. So here, again, with this form, we are posting and then text username. So name equals username. So whatever value is here, we're sending that to the login script, and then we're setting the value for session username to whatever that post username is. The same is true with font size. So font size is name equals font size. So we're posting font size over to the login script. That comes in here, and then we're setting the value of the session variable font size to whatever that post is. Past that, we're then going to go down, and it says echo, you're now logged in as, and we can simply call the variable, the session variable as is. So we don't have to reset that to another variable. We don't have to do like $username equals $_session username. We can actually just call the variable value from the session variable. So you are now logged in as whatever the value is that you put for username. You set the font size to, and then again, like I say here, we're simply calling that session variable and whatever the value is. So that's what comes out. So if we come here, basically, like I say, I'll log in as, I don't know, Matt with a font size of 15. Then when I hit submit, it says, you are now logged in. So this is simply calling that session variable value for username, and you set the font size to, and we're simply calling the session variable value for whatever you've set for the font size. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and we're then going to look at the home page, the about page, and the another page. So we're going to come down here, and again, this is where we get to the PHP script. So everything above the PHP tag, that's simply basic HTML. Then below the PHP is obviously the PHP script. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to do that session start. So session_start. This allows you to then start interacting with those session variable values. All I'm doing here is I'm actually creating variables, $username, $font size, and I'm setting the values of those variables to whatever the session values are. So $_session username, $_session font size. I'm setting these variable values to the new variables that I've created. So again, you can simply call the values directly from the session variables, or if you want to make it something a little bit easier to be able to type out when you're writing long code, you can create new variable names and then set the values to whatever the session values are. Past that, then we're simply going to go down here. We're going to echo out in PHP, strong, so bold. I'm simply going to print out whatever the value of username is. So the value of username is going to be whatever the value for session username is logged in. Then in order to change the font size, echo P. So basically what I'm doing here is CSS styling. So style equals font size, and then I'm concatenating in here whatever the value for font size is. So font size comes in from the session variable here, It's set to whatever $sign font size here, and then I'm calling that value here. So basically it's going to change that font size, and this is the text on the home page. Look at what the size is, right? So you go through, and basically I have the same type of thing on the about page. So for about, again, session start, username equals the value from session username, font size equals the value from session font size, basically printing out the same thing like the home page. Then we go to the another page, essentially, again, copy and paste. Remember that session underscore start, you have to put that in there, or the session for the page doesn't actually start. We set the values for the variables, and then we call the values for the variables. So that's how that works. If we go and we take a look at the demonstration, again, we can see here, we go to home. So Matt is logged in. Look at what the text size is. So I guess this is 15 pixel, no big deal. About, Matt is logged in. This is 15 pixel. Another page, Matt is logged in. Again, this is 15 pixel. That's not too dramatic, but again, you get the point. Now the question is what happens when we go to logout? So basically, if I click on this link for a logout, what's going to happen is we are now going to go to the Logout Script Dot Php. And if we go and take a look at that on the in the actual code, what we can see is basically we just have a couple of functions here. So what we're going to be doing is printing out in basic HTML, you have been logged out, break, and then simply a link back to the home page. So this is all basic HTML up here. You can more or less ignore that. We're then going to be opening up the PHP script. The first thing that we have to do before we can kill the session, before we can unset the values in the session, we actually have to start the session. So session underscore start. So that starts here. And then session underscore unset. What this does is this unsets all the variable values that have been created. So theoretically, that's all you have to do. If you want to keep the session open for whatever reason, you can keep the session open but kill all the values for the session variables that you've created. Since we're going to be logging out though, we are going to then destroy the session. So session underscore destroyed. What this does is it closes that PHP session between the web browser and your server and basically kills that connection. This is one of those things that is very smart to do. So this right here will get rid of all the values that you've set up, and that might be good for you for some specific things. By doing the session destroy though, again, remember every session that's open, that's going to have a bit of drain on resources for your server. So basically when the session is over, you want to destroy that session. You actually want to kill that session, that connection between the server and the web browser, so that you're not wasting resources and so that there's possibly not any kind of other security vulnerability there. But basically, once you've killed the session, again, you can go over and we take a look at the demonstration. We can see all of the variables have gone away. So that is basically how session variables work, and basically how you can use them in your web application. So there you go. Now you have officially seen an ass-ugly PHP web application. It's hard when I try to create these applications, trying to show you one specific concept can be a bit ugly because I'm not trying to add in all of this other code that would make it prettier, but would also make what I'm trying to teach you a lot more complicated. So what I showed you today is basically how you can use a basic, HTML form in order to set session variable values, and then how you can call those variable values throughout the other pages in your PHP web application. So again, this is going to be an important thing for you to be thinking about. Is what variable values do you want to follow the user as they interact with your website? Do you simply want them to plug information into a form, they hit submit, that gets dumped into a MySQL database table, and that's it? Whatever information is dumped in the table, that shouldn't follow them throughout the rest of the web application? Or do you want some information, some variable values to follow them throughout the rest of the web application? Again, if you're going to have users create user accounts for your application, basically dump in a lot of information into the MySQL database table, but then have things such as the username follow them throughout your web application. Again, little user experience environmental tweaks, modifying the size of text, modifying colors, that type of thing. You may want that to follow them through the web application. Then as you start to create more complicated web applications, then you can have other variable values values, session variable values that will follow your user. And then you can use that for things such as security. You can use that for things such as logging. Logging. Just kind of point out that whenever you use an application on the internet, basically the server can log the hell out of everything that you do, and one of the ways that that can happen is by using things such as session variables. So they can set the session variable, basically give you an identifier of some sort, and then literally track you and know exactly how you're using and interacting with their web application. Again, that does not have to be nefarious. That doesn't necessarily have to be a nefarious thing. It could be a very useful things for such as security, and also just for like web application design, seeing how people are actually interacting with the web application. So when you start looking at session variable values and how those values are going to follow your users, you are going to have to think about, again, what is necessary, what is needed, what is creepy. Again, in the modern world, just remember, just because you can technically do something, your users might not be amused when they find out how you're using that thing. So those are some of the things that you have to think about with session variable values. But this is just a very easy way to have variable values follow your users throughout their experience with your web application, be able to set things once, and then basically be able to forget it, at least from the user standpoint. So, as always, I enjoyed teaching this class. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to elithecomputerguy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos, or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year, and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.